Hello, I'm Tori Wallach, and I'm here to welcome you to Tech Tuesday at 2 right here in the Edmund Lowe Creative Studios. This event is designed to encourage students to experiment with the technology they will need to be successful at OSU and beyond. This semester, Tech Tuesday at 2 will meet right here in the Creative Studios on the first Tuesday of every month for interactive showcases of emerging and innovative technologies. Last semester, we learned about the drone simulator, Photoshop, and the library's large format printer. If you missed one of our programs or simply need a refresher, they are available on YouTube and can also be found by searching the library's website for Tech Tuesday. Today's program is about the basics of building a computer from the ground up. Presenting today is the library's own Shannon Austin. We'll take questions from the audience afterwards, and if you are watching outside on today's live stream, you can submit questions on Twitter using the hashtag LibTech2s. At the end of our program, we will be drawing for prizes, including today's grand prize, a Raspberry Pi 4. If you are an OSU student here with us, be sure to fill out a prize entry form. If you haven't already done so, a member of our friendly staff can assist you. Without further ado, we are ready to begin.
All right, thank you for that. Hey everybody, thank you all for coming. My name is Shannon Austin. I am the Senior Computer Specialist here in the Creative Studios. And if any of you that know me, hey buddy, how's it going? Good to see you all. And for new faces, I look forward to showing you all what I know. Okay, so for starters, building your own computer. That's something that you hear uber nerds talking about. That's something you hear about really smart and interesting people talking about, and it sounds impossible. You see pictures of stuff like this and you're going, yeah, no, that's not a thing that I can do. I'm here to tell you that you can, and especially that you should. So I got my start. I've always been a naturally kind of technically inclined kind of person. I was a very precocious child, and by that I mean I used to wake my parents up on Saturday because I'd be taking apart the VCR instead of watching cartoons on it to see how it worked. So I've always been a really technically inclined kind of person. I like to see how things work, and stuff like this excites me. It doesn't frighten me. I always want to know, what's that, ooh, what's that, much to my parents' displeasure. But never really got my feet wet when it came to computer architecture until college. 50 million years ago, when I was an undergrad here in 2004, I was already a bit of a computer gamer, but I hadn't really taken that next step. Computer games weren't that advanced back then. You know, you got your consoles, you got whatever. But I was working in a shop, and I was doing computer repairs there, mostly software, antivirus, that sort of stuff, but I hadn't really got into the hardware yet. And I heard about this really awesome game coming down the pipe called World of Warcraft. It was supposed to be revolutionary. It's so cool. And all the guys in my office wouldn't shut up about it. And I'm like, well, I gotta jump on this train. So back in those days, I had saved up my money in high school and bought a Gateway. I mean, they were like, that was the sky. Those were like the computers. They were, I think they're bankrupt now, but that's not the point. The point is, I had bought a desktop PC just like you see everywhere, and I was proud of it. It was a nice little machine, and it was running everything I had done up to that point. So I downloaded and installed World of Warcraft, and it was like a stop-motion animation. My computer could not handle that. So I did what every logical broke college student would do. I'd say, I can't afford a new computer. I'm just going to get a better graphics card. That's what everyone says you need. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to do it. So I got online, found a reputable website, and I found a new graphics card. Super cheap. It was like 60 bucks. It was going to be so much better than what I already had. Had lots of great reviews. This was before Amazon, if you can believe it. And so I bought it, showed up in my dorm room, and I eagerly ripped my Gateway apart, and I'm looking at it going, this is going to be, where does that go? Oh, okay, that's a, uh-oh. That's not what I said, but that's what I was thinking, because I had bought a graphics card called an AGP, Express AGP slot graphics card, which my Dell motherboard, Gateway motherboard, did not support. bit of a history lesson. It's not important that you know this, but it is funny in hindsight. Most cards that you put into a computer back then were PCI cards, and you could do everything from video cards to sound cards to modems. And some of you don't even know what that is. Doesn't matter. Everything was PCI back then. In between PCI and PCI Express 16, which is what we all use now for these chonkers, in between that was a phase called AGP. So I had bought an AGP card that was incompatible with my motherboard. So I did what every other broke college student would do. I wouldn't accept no for an answer, and I said, fine, I'll get a new motherboard. So I shopped online and found a nice reputable one that would work with my AGP video card that I really wanted to use. And I got it, and it showed up, and then my processor wasn't compatible, and my memory, and everything. And at this point, little did I know I had bought a motherboard that uses Intel chipsets instead of AMD. I didn't know what that was. Found out it was wrong. The point I'm making here is I learned organically how to build a computer. By the time I was done with my freshman year, I had a Frankenstein's monster of a computer, and in the end, it only cost me about $150 worth of parts, lots of frustration, copious amounts of profanity. But at that point, I knew how to build a computer really well because I had done everything wrong. But again, it was a valuable learning experience. And so the purpose, what I'm getting at here is I want to save you that nightmare, even though I do recommend it to everybody. I want to save you the trouble of going through what I did and give you a head start if this is ever something that you think you might want to do. So, long story short, I've been building computers ever since. I design and build them for friends and family and people that just are interested, and I love it. Honestly, there's a gentleman in the crowd today that I've actually helped put together a parts list, and he's probably going to come up here and pick my brain again and say, what about this? Because once you get into this, it's hard to stop. Okay, so let's get started. Why should you build your own computer rather than just buying one off the shelf at Best Buy or Amazon or Dell or wherever? Well, for starters, it's cheaper. Now, that being said, a lot of the ones that I have up here, they're not the cheaper ones that I've built for people. They're just the more impressive ones, but can you blame me for that? I mean, look how pretty those are. They are, in the long and short run, very much cheaper than buying something off of the rack. Because for the same price, I'm just going to throw a number out, you can buy a pretty decent entry-level gaming PC from Alienware for like, well, it's Alienware, so it's like $700. Yeah. I spec'd out the exact same computer on their website, and I could build it for about $400. So what I guess their markup is the know-how of how to do this. So yes, it is cheaper in the short and long hand. Modular and customizable, I know that's the world's tiniest text, so I'm just mostly just using that for notes for me shouting at you. When I say modular, you can bust out of the standard shell of having just a brick on your or under your desk. You can make it kind of feel like you know, if you're a steampunk fanatic, or if you're into Mario and Luigi or whatever death metal thing that is, you can really make your computer feel like yours. You can change the colors, you can change the lights, you can, well, that's just the physical aspect of it. If you don't need something that's going to basically heat and cool your apartment because it's so powerful, you can make something that just does what you need. If you're just the type of person that's going to use it to make really awesome like home movies or music videos or documentaries, you don't need a lot of this stuff. You can just make it for what you need it to do. If you're going to be going full VR, you know, everything, and you want to have the best gaming thing, then yeah, you're going to get real familiar with these, but you're not necessarily going to want to use one of these, and I'll get into more of what that is later. But anyways, you can make it very much custom to what you need. And you have complete control over the building specifications. You're not locked down to a certain manufacturer because parts are made by tons of different companies. And if you have some that you prefer over others because of whatever reason, maybe you own stock in one and not the other. Or maybe you've heard you don't like the business practices of one over another. Or if you've just had bad luck in the past with this, you can try this. you really do have control over it because you're essentially building it from the ground up. As far as replacements and fixing it, building it is the best way to learn how to fix it because you know what each component does. And when it comes to things like, well, it's doing this weird thing, having a know-how of how it goes together, you're really going to have a head start on trying to replace parts that may be going bad. If you're getting a pop-up that's saying memory low or running out of hard drive space, that's cool. We'll just get another one and slap it in there, no problem. Done, fixed, solved. This really does save money in the long run, especially because instead of buying an entirely new system because of one small thing that's going wrong with it, you replace that one thing and it costs you 20 bucks. Not too bad. Again, choosing from parts and manufacturers that you know and trust, that's a big thing for some people. I have lots of brands that I like. I've used a lot of them. Also, there's a huge online community of do-it-yourselfers. Reddit's full of people that love building and customizing computers. There's YouTubers. Some of you may have heard of Linus's Tech Tips. There's a couple of other personalities that do this. So you're never going to be left out in the dark. In fact, it's far easier now than it has ever been. And obviously, yes, building a computer, you're going to learn how they work. And honestly, it's just like finding out how your car works. It's going to put you at a huge advantage when people or things go wrong with it and someone tries to, I don't know, scam you on something. I wish I knew cars better. Okay, so who doesn't need to build a computer? Well, that's the first question I get is, do I really need to build one? Am I the type of person that would benefit from this? So who doesn't need to would be people who only use their computer for Netflix or HBO Go or Hulu or Disney Plus. Basically people that just watch the internet stuff all day. People that are just doing word processing. If you basically just have a typewriter with, electronics on it, that goes without saying. This is massive overkill for that. Again, people that just browse the internet and creep on Facebook all the time. People who talk during movies. I just threw that in there. But who should? The people that should, gamers, obviously, esports athletes, that's a given. But what about Twitch streamers? You never see them without one of these on their desk, usually gleaming beautifully in the background. These are the types of computers you'll need to build if you're going to host or have a vlog or a streaming channel. Let's see, who else? Obviously, hobbyists like myself that do it literally just because it's fun. Techies, if you have always kind of felt a little bit out of step with your colleagues that, oh, I built my first computer when I was in 6th grade, I was just an animal, If you want to get be able to talk around the water cooler with others that have, get into the community, hobbies, techies, etc. People that need heavy multimedia or graphics for Photoshop, Premiere, 3D modeling, anything in the 3D pipeline, rigging, animation, lots of cool stuff there. Multitaskers, that kind of goes without saying. If you want to be rendering something while you're watching Netflix and Skyping with somebody while you're doing a Twitch stream, yeah, you probably need something with a little bit more power. Specialized equipment, people that want to have photo studios, things like that. There's lots of people that should. Interesting and smart people should build their computers. People who want to be interesting and smart should build their computers. I'm trying to sway you. I'm just glad y'all are here. So, what are some common questions? The first one I usually get, is it hard? Short answer, no. Long answer, no. This is the part where you laugh, doesn't matter. Okay, so when I say it's not hard, yes, I come from a history of having done this, but the more I learn about it, the more I see how easy it can be. If you can follow a cooking recipe, you can build a computer. And when I say it's not hard, it's because it's not hard for the simple reason that you can't plug a USB into a wall outlet, a standard 3-prong. If you're looking at a motherboard, which we're going to get more into this later, motherboards look complicated, but everything on here has its own spot, and you can't plug this anywhere but right here where it's supposed to go. You can't put this, as I found out, anywhere except where it's supposed to go. So it's really straightforward. Once you know what you're looking at, it's really not that difficult. Second question I get, can I build a laptop? Short answer, no. Long answer, no, kinda, not really. The point of building a computer is to get more power. And obviously making it modular and customizable. So I guess addendum to that previous who shouldn't build a computer, people that want to build a laptop. Excuse me. Laptops are designed for compatibility and portability, but they're not really designed for power. Yes, there are gaming laptops, but they're very specifically designed, very custom, like very standard manufacturer. There's no such thing as a standard manufacturer for a laptop. Desktop computers, they come in all shapes and sizes. And quite frankly, if you were going to try to build a laptop, it would be like trying to carry this in your pocket or over on your satchel. It's just, to put it another way, the whole purpose of this is to get more power. More power means more electricity, more heat, bigger fans, and unless the laws of thermodynamics are set to change anytime soon, you're not going to make anything more effective, fans especially, by shrinking them. So lots of reasons there. So can you build a laptop? Kind of. There's a few modular laptop designs that you can get in kits, but it's really not what I'm going to go into today. So short answer no, long answer no, but kind of. Can I build a Mac? That is a third question I get a lot. Short answer no, long answer no, and you shouldn't want to. Not because I have anything against Mac computers, they're great. However, when it comes to customization, Mac OS, Apple does not let you swap out parts as easily as PC does, and you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to find compatible drivers, trying to make it work with your operating system. There's plenty of engineer people in here shaking their heads and saying, well, I've done it. Yes, and good for you. For the rest of us, I'm not ready to put up with that. Most home-built PCs are going to be built using a Windows or Linux-based operating system. So, what are the components of a PC? Let's get into it. So, for starters, the case. The case is exactly what it looks like. It is a box that needs to be no more special than that. It is a case that literally contains all of the components that you're going to shove in and call a computer. And you can go bananas customizing this, and people have, as you see here. So cases come in all shapes and sizes. Oh, really? Ugh, gross. No, go away. Okay, so cases come in all shapes and sizes. They come in all different colors. They come in all different, can you all see that? Excellent. You can customize, this is where most people really get into customizing their computer, and honestly, if this is as custom as you want to make it, awesome, more power to you. Or if you want something just boring, plain, that's fine too. You can get really creative with this. There are a ton of different styles. You've got the glass affairs going on here. If you really want to be showy, you can get all different colors. You can get them with super crazy looking fans. Or you can just keep it simple and just get a standard aluminum black box, or white or orange or whatever. Cases run anywhere from $20 to $120. There's some that are gigantic that are, you know, basically can almost levitate and, you know, Skynet style cases, but that's all in your preferences and your tastes. Let's look at some gaming cases just because. It really, when it comes to a case, it really doesn't matter. It's personal preference alone, but you're never going to find this type of, ooh, I like that. You're never going to find this type of variety when you're just shopping for a computer online or perusing around an office store. So that's the first step that kind of really gets you thinking about what's possible. Okay, so that's the case. Second step, motherboard. What is a motherboard? A motherboard is, and this is one that I just ripped out of an old system that I had. A motherboard is, well, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. The motherboard is the main component that gets plugged right into the back of any case that you get. Almost always they're going to be compatible depending on what size it is. There's the occasion where you'll have smaller ones, some are bigger, but they've all got these basic 9 screws to be mounted to the back of whatever computer you got. And this is the part that you see. This is the only part that sticks out. That's where you plug in your mouse and your keyboard and your Wi-Fi and your etc. But what a motherboard is the hub. Every one of these other components are all going to plug into this, whether it's your processor, your RAM, your GPU. I'm using a lot of acronyms. I'll explain all this later. Everything plugs into this. A motherboard is just a giant circuit board that is, well, I don't know how else to say hub. I've run out of synonyms. You get it. Everything plugs into this. So what do those look like? Motherboards, just like cases, can be anything you want them to be. They can run anywhere from $20 to, again, $220. It just, again, depends on what you're going to use it for. So these are a little bit more complex, but the basic fundamentals are all there. They're just a hub with ports that you can plug anything imaginable into. I wish this Zoom worked better. God, why am I not using Chrome? Anyways, God. Oh, this is terrible. There we go. So while they all look a little bit different, they all have the same fundamental components, and that's where everything plugs in. So what's next? Beyond the motherboard, the CPU, or the central processing unit, or the processor. You've heard this term tossed around a lot. They all mean the same thing. The CPU is the brain. Well, the whole thing is a brain. The CPU is basically the brain of the brain. The central processing unit, or processor, is the thing that processes every bit of information that comes from the keyboard, the mouse, from you, to the hard drive. If you tell your computer to do a thing, this is what makes all of those decisions in millisecond, beyond millisecond, micros, I don't even know what's smaller than micro, doesn't matter. This is the thing that processes every bit of information that you tell your computer to do. If that is running a program, or opening up a program, or a browser, or a game, or Photoshop, or putting in keystrokes, everything runs through here. So your CPU, there's many different types, but this is the powerhouse of the computer. This is probably one of the most important components. Without this, nothing works. So what are your options there? CPUs, you may have heard this with your tech friends or amongst yourself. You've got a lot of choices when it comes to CPUs, but it essentially comes down to two primary manufacturers, either Intel or AMD. There are a few smaller ones, but those are your primary chipsets. And by chipset, I just mean it's just what's compatible with that. So you might have heard the term, oh, this one has an i7, this one has an i5, an i9, or this one's a AMD cross-threaded. This is what they're talking about. When it comes to this, they all come in spectacularly, beautifully designed boxes, but they'll hardly ever show you that what's inside is literally just this. They're all in this beautiful packaging, but yes, inside, and again, that one actually shows you. Okay, so processors, you have your choice, AMD or Intel, it really doesn't matter, except you need to make certain that whatever processor you get is compatible with your motherboard. And most motherboards, when you select them, will tell you whether they're compatible with AMD or Intel, and from there, you just pick which one you think you need. When it comes to, what speed, that again is going to depend on you and what you plan on doing with your computer. If you're not going to be running multiple programs at once, or if you're not going to be doing anything that requires a lot of processing power, then you could probably go with an i3. You could go with an i5, an i7, and you can read more about what that is, but essentially every processor has a core clock running at a certain speed. And multiple cores means multiple programs, and processes can run at the same time, but it's what you'd expect. The more expensive it's going to be, the more things that it can do. So again, not the most glamorous, but crucial component, processor. After that, RAM. Everybody knows about RAM. Oh, this computer's so slow, it needs more memory. Oh, it needs more RAM. What does that mean? What is the difference between, where is it? What is the difference between a hard drive and RAM? This question gets brought up a lot. I should probably, there's the hard drive. Okay, everybody should know what a hard drive is. We all have externals. We all also probably have flash drives that have more memory than this thing. Point is, the hard drive is just your storage space. It's where you download things. It's where you install things. It's where everything runs. It's where your operating system is. But it is just a storage facility. This is a warehouse. This is a storage warehouse of everything that is on your computer that you want to, whether it's a picture or a program, it's on your hard drive. And what memory is also storage, but in a far faster and more accessible way. The best way I can describe it is, If you think about a storage facility, you've got everything that you need in there, but to search through it, it takes a little time. You know, you got to move the stupid office chair that you never threw away. You got to find out what shelf it's on. It's going to take a while to retrieve things. RAM is the loading dock, okay? It's the things that you use the most. When you click on a program, when it says loading, it is literally loading it from your hard drive to your memory, or RAM. It means random access memory. And having a large amount of RAM means that your computer is able to hold the programs and things that you're currently looking at more and faster for access. Because this is essentially just storage, but it's much faster to access it, literally by its physical design. A hard drive connects to your computer using a single cable, like this. And this is actually a hard disk drive, which inside it has little spinning disks in it. There's solid states now, they're much faster, but you're still having this, I guess you could call it a, what's the word? Bottleneck effect. You can only access information on here so quickly. The way that memory is designed, this little plug here is spread out and basically is given more doors all along here. So instead of trying to grab things out of your storage facility one thing at a time, you've got 20 doors opening up all at once, and much more information can get out much faster. That's a huge oversimplification of what memory does, but that's the best metaphor I can come up with, so sue me. Okay, so memory. RAM, memory, call it what you will. Memory, I figure a good starting jumping off place would be about 8 gigs. And in the old days, that was huge. That was ridiculous. Nowadays, people have 64 gigs worth of memory, which honestly I think is overkill. And I put my computer through some serious paces, and I've never used more than, I think, 18. Doesn't matter. Point is, you can get really customizable on your memory as well, but they all, as you see, look fundamentally the same. You can see peeping out from each one of these are these little gold connectors. And you can get a pretty decent stack of memory for about 30 bucks. It'd buy you about 16 gigs. And all of this little things, you know, the colored stuff on the outside, all these little metal bits here, I'm gonna zoom in on that even more. Those are essentially heat sinks, because when you're accessing this data, the electricity moving through it is going to generate a fair amount of heat. So you'll want to have a metal capacitor, excuse me, a heat sink on that to dissipate the heat, but that's what you're looking at there. So that's memory, plain and simple. Not to be confused with, oh, my computer needs more memory, it needs more space. Two different things. If your computer ever pops up and says you're running out of room on your C drive, that means it's time to either start over, reformat, or get another hard drive. This is what we're talking about here. Hard drives, again, come in all shapes and sizes. In this case, this is a desktop hard drive. And, oh my God, you can get, that's 4 terabytes of hard drive space for 80 bucks. That's absurd. And ever since everything went streaming, completely unnecessary. There you go. That is a 2 terabyte hard drive for 50. It's not crucial that you get a solid state. Some people prefer it, but as long as you have enough memory, you're not going to really notice that much of a difference. It just kind of depends on your preference. The difference between the two is hard disk drives literally have disks in here that spin, and it uses processes that I will never understand to store your data on there. Solid state drives work very much like a flash drive. So yeah, one's a little bit faster than the other, but when it comes to just storage, I'm not particular. Hard drive, crucial component. I'm sorry I keep doing that. Oh, let's see, we've got all this great stuff. We need to actually be able to turn it on. Power supply unit. Very underappreciated part of a computer. This is an older one, but the fundamental processes haven't changed in about 30 years. Hey, that's my water bottle. This is what takes the AC coming out of the wall, turns it into DC current, and lets your computer use it. All of these cables that are coming out of the back of it power everything from your motherboard itself to your hard drives, to your case fans, and to even, in extreme cases, your graphics card, which may need its own isolated power source because this is a monster. Something like this doesn't need it. This can, without getting too far into it, most PCI card slots can provide up to 75 watts of electricity. Anything more than that, you need to have a dedicated power adapter for it. I'm gonna whack myself in the face with this. So power supply units, They fit in the back of every computer you've ever seen. This is the one black cable that you're going to plug into the wall, and this provides, drop it, this provides power to everything in your system. Power supply units, when it comes to what style or what size or what wattage, there's a lot of great ways and very easy ways nowadays to find out how much power you need to, well, power your system. And I'll show you how you can figure that out later. But essentially, to power a motherboard, you really only need about 100 watts. To power a motherboard with memory in it, you need about 120, 150. To power a motherboard with a CPU and RAM, it's an escalating scale. And they get escalating in complicatedness. I threw this over the back because I didn't want to frighten anybody, but the power supply in this thing is designed to power, this thing could run a city, and not really. The power supplies can just get increasingly complicated and increasingly more powerful depending on what you need them for. A lot of them are modular, meaning that instead of just a standard group of cables sticking out of the back, you can choose which ones you want. I'm a big fan of modular power supplies, but again, not necessary. And they're all listed by wattage and by brand. There's a nice 450 for $50. That's probably going to be enough for most people. If you're going to be running, well, something like that, you're probably going to need something a little bit more powerful. Depending on the parts that you get, it will determine how much power that you need. And you'll see things like bronze rating, silver rating, gold rating. That is to show how efficient they are and how well they're able to handle the current going to your computer and when it's idling and not really in use. Because even when you turn your computer off, it's not actually off. Ooh. Anyways, okay, moving on. So those are your core components. Now we get into the fun stuff. Oh, that's not fun. Operating system software. Every computer, as it is, once you plug everything in, is just a machine. It needs software to run it. Windows, Linux, Ubuntu, take your pick. You can use any operating system you like, and in most cases, you'll purchase that in a CD or a flash drive form. Or if you happen to be an OSU student, guess what? If you go to it.okstate.edu, there is a software distribution center on campus that you are a part of that gives you, as you pay your tech fee, you have the ability to, wow, that's really zoomed in. You have the ability to acquire certain software as a member of OSU. You are entitled to a copy of Microsoft Office and Windows 10. So this is a really good time to jump on that. Where is, wow, they've redesigned their website. Super. Oh man, well, it's on here. I am a student, at least I used to be. Here we go. Support services, software distribution. Right here is where you can get access to Office, you can get access to Windows 10. All of this is part of the tuition that you pay at OSU. And when I was a student here, man, did I take advantage of this. I probably rebuilt systems twice in the 4 years that I was here, which was a lot of fun, mostly because I was a fanatic, but that's not the point. Point is, you can log in here. I'm not going to do that. You can log in and literally download the software that you need to run your computer. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, optional, some semi, but optional components for a PC. Graphics card. Now, I put this as optional because not everybody's going to use graphics heavy stuff on their PC. Some people just need the processing power. So if you have a motherboard, a lot of them will come with onboard graphics. And if that's all you need, then that's all you need. But if you're going to be doing crazy graphic gaming, multimedia, fast-paced, crazy virtual 3D, you're going to need a graphics unit. And those are where the price starts to go up a little bit. For reasons that I won't go too deeply into, much having to do with cryptocurrency mining, graphics cards have gotten a bit expensive lately, thanks, but they're going back down a little bit. Graphics cards run from anything from like this you would call like a value graphics card, perfectly decent, might give you some stop animation if you try to run a mainstream game on it, but not terrible. Up to that, some more mainstream cards. You can see this one has a dedicated fan on it. Going to be a little bit more powerful. This is I believe this is a Radeon. Doesn't matter. All the way up to the Crazy, which is what this is. This is the card that I pulled out of my recent build. You have choices just like you have with everything else when it comes to your graphic cards. What they do is hard to explain, but there's a reason there's a reason this is what you hear about the most when you hear about people building computers is, oh, tell me about the graphics, tell me about the graphics, because that's what we literally see. Taking all of the calculations and math and ones and zeros from a computer, from your keystroke and mouse, into and then translating it into an image is one of the most power draining and heavy processing powered things that your computer can do. And these things are basically computers in and of themselves, but what they do is they take all of the data powered by your hard drive, your memory, your CPU, and translate it into a visual image, which is a very complicated thing to do, which is why these things get so big. And why they need, in many cases, their own heat sink to pull heat off of their electronics boards. So, good Lord. Okay, no, they're not all that expensive. That's insane. Let me try to dumb this down a little bit. We'll start with the lowest end. You've got options. Okay, you can get perfectly decent graphics cards. That was $1,000. You can get crazy with your graphics. You can also start small and see what you need. So, wow, that was a scary thing to have up there. I'm sorry. You can really find what you need using an estimator. There's a website called pcpartpicker.com that'll really take a read of what you're wanting to do with your system and tell you what is massive overkill and what's going to be just right. So graphics cards, again, they come in all shapes and sizes, but again, as you see, they no longer use AGP, but they all use pretty much the same plugins here. That's a PCI Express. Hasn't really changed in 30 years except for the year that I bought mine for the first time. Anywho, right, so that's your video card. Moving on. Optical drive. I'm old school. I still think computers should have CD drives because I was born in the 80s and I think they're never going to go away. I always include one in every build that I do because sometimes you're going to want to watch a DVD. Sometimes you're going to have a piece of software that only comes on a CD and you can't download it. I know, gasp. So an optical drive goes in the front of your system. It's the simplest thing you could imagine. They're insanely inexpensive, and I think it's just a great thing to include in any system. If you want, get an external. You'll never know when you're going to need one of these things until you do, and then you'll curse yourself for not having one. So this one here, 18 bucks. No big deal. And they're also very compatible. This one's meant for a laptop if yours ever goes out. Another cool thing here. But anywho, optical drive, not mandatory, but be smart. I'm really putting my opinions into a lot of this. I do apologize for that, but it's a very personal process. Moving on from there, a cooling system. Those of you who are up close can see this spidery looking guy. This is a cooler for a CPU. As I mentioned, your CPU is this boring square little thing that is the make or break device for how fast your computer runs. This generates an insane amount of heat because there's an insane amount of electricity running through it at any given time. And this little metal cap on there is a heat spreading cap that draws the heat from the processor while it's moving, but it needs to go further than that. On top of your CPU, you will place something like this. Now, most processors are going to come with what's known as a stock cooler. They typically look like this. If any of you have ever tore open a Dell or accidentally dropped one and it popped open, this is usually what's on most PCs. It's a stock cooling fan. What it does is it presses right up against the top of the processor cap using aluminum or copper, and it draws the heat into these fins. I was hoping that would be more melodic. Draws the heat into the aluminum or copper fins, and then a fan spins across it, drawing the heat off or pushing the heat through the fans, keeping it cool. Having a cooling system for your CPU is incredibly important, and they get more and more complicated the more you do it. This is a copper style heatsink. It's the same process, but if you can kind of see it, this is the part that would go right on top of your processor, and it has these 3 copper bars that pull. If you were to put this on your hand and wait for it to heat up, you're going to wait all day. You're going to wait forever because this pulls heat so efficiently off of your processor and then disperses it through all of these fins. No, not pretty. And then again, a fan pushes air through it to keep it cool. This would never warm up. I could put this in my hand forever and it would still be nice and cool. So when you're talking about drawing heat off your processor, a cooling system is paramount. And just a word of warning, never test a computer without one of these plugged into on top of your CPU. It can overheat almost instantaneously, so always have that on there. Another interesting thing is, aside from just putting this on there, you'll also need something called a thermal compound, which comes with every heat sink. Essentially what it is a liquid, oftentimes silver putty, for lack of a word. It fills in all the little microscopic gaps in the metal between there and acts as a conductant of heat. It's very electrically insulating, very thermally conductive, but also important part of that. Okay, so CPU coolers, air coolers are kind of the standard, but as you see on some of these, I'm sure you've been wondering, what are those reservoir looking things with all the cool tubes running out of them? There are liquid cooling systems now, and they are very effective. Show me one. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. Liquid cooling systems came out several years ago. They are fun to play around with. They can be a little messy. My personal favorite these days is liquid cooling systems with sealed systems. They work very much like radiators. This bit here essentially takes the place of this gigantic thing. It plugs on top of your processor, and then it runs a constant stream of water to a radiator, which are connected to these fans. These are really popular right now because there's just so much simpler than trying to run a fully, there you go, that's a liquid cooling system. They look real cool, but again, that's for people like me that genuinely get satisfaction from playing around with stuff like that. Again, not necessary, cool optional component. You would be perfectly fine with one of these. This is a standard heat sink. This is about 20 bucks. Not bad at all. By the way, I'm kind of barreling through this. Do we have, we'll save questions for later. Additional software, again, you've got the Software Distribution Center, but there's pretty much anything at that point you can put on there. LEDs, this is where you can get super customizing as well with, here we go. You can put in light strips, you can put in all different colored stuff. You can go, this is where people go absolutely just nanners with customizing their computers. Lots of fun. I'm not going to go too far into it because I don't want to, we're already, wow. I'm in my element. I could talk all day. Additional fans, yes, sometimes you can put additional fans on the side of your case. This is the side case to this monster here. This is a 120. If you find that because there's always a temperature monitor on each computer. If you find you're pulling too much heat and need more cooling, you can just get more fans for your case. Again, there's lots you can do here. And yes, oh yeah, also, computers also need a monitor, a mouse, a keyboard, speakers, a mic, a headset, webcam, etc. I don't mention that because that's the stuff that you keep from year to year, never changes unless you want it to. Mouse and keyboard are a dime a dozen these days. They can be, and they can also be crazy, but that is, I'm not going to go too far into that. You can keep your same monitor year after year. If you're going to build a system, your computer can change, the monitor will stay the same until you want to upgrade that. So I'm not going to go too deeply into that. So where's this all leading? Well, the point of all of this, I would say, is you can, you should, it's fun, it's inexpensive, it's a cool hobby to have, and it will really give you a great insight into how these things that we use every day of our lives work. So if in the future this is something that you want to look into doing, you have the tools to do it, and there are great resources available to start, hopefully not where I did, making horrible mistakes. There's a lot of great resources to stop issues that may arise with compatibility. And I can tell you, as someone who's done this for a good 15 years now, there's not a lot that can really go wrong. This seems really intimidating on first inspection, but as time goes by, it's as easy as, honestly, it's as easy as putting together a set of Legos for a lot of people. And you can really have some fun with it. So I guess if we want to have some questions, I would love to hear from you. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? That was a lot. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering about how much time do you use to like make a computer?
How long does it take? I could put together a build in about, like, digitally, like mapping out what parts I want to do. There's tons of great websites. I could put together a build in about 10 minutes online, order the parts, and then once they're in, it'd probably take me about an hour to slowly put it together piece by piece, being really, really careful about what I do. So it doesn't take much time to put together at all. Good question. Oops. Anyone else? Yes?
When it comes to like all the extemporaneous stuff, how do you organize all of that within the case? The stuff that isn't just set onto the motherboard?
Yeah. With things like that, it really depends on the size of your case. Because this is a full-size ATX. There's also a mid-size ATX. There's also a micro form factor ATX. I don't even know what ATX stands for. Anyways, depending on the size of your case will depend very much on where you put things. But when it comes to each component, the motherboard is going to dictate where everything goes. You'll see all these different styles, but when you come to know what each part is, you'll know that that's the processor, that's the reservoir, that's the processor, that's the reservoir, that's the graphics card, that's the radiator, the memory, right there. They all look a little different, but they all kind of go in the same place. So there's your processor, there's your reservoir, that's your graphics card, there's your memory. And the power supply is on the back side of that one. The motherboard is just all in the background. Give me another one. There's your video card, there's your, oh, I touched it, sorry. There's your power supply, there's your graphics card, there's the processor, your hard drive's there. Everything has its own spot. It's really going to be dictated by your motherboard. Someone else had a question back there? Nope, he's shaking his head. Anyone else? Okay, well, if y'all want to stick around, I'm going to put one together up here. Do you want to take over and do anything up there? Okay.
Thank you for your questions and discussion. If you want to know more about the program or equipment available here in the library, I encourage you to visit with our knowledgeable staff here in the Edmund Lowe Creative Studios. Our next Tech Tuesday at 2 will be on March 3rd and will feature Kelly Kerr of OkStateLibrary Creative as he shows us the fundamentals of shooting good video. We hope you all can join us. We'll be giving away a DJI mobile gimbal, so be here for a chance to win. If you have suggestions for future Tech Tuesday at 2 topics, please send them to us on Twitter with the hashtag LibTech2s. Right now, we are going to say goodbye to our live audience before we draw for prizes. Thank you all for joining us online.